I'd like to speak today about the midah of nosei b'olam chavero and try to understand what is this midah, how is this different than ordinary chesed, and why it is so crucial in our lives. So I'd like to begin with the beginning of Sefer Shmos, when we read about Batya bat Paro seeing Moshe in a teva, and the Torah tells us she takes out the teva, she opens up the teva, and she sees a child, Vatireu et hayeled. And then the pasuk goes on to say, V'hinei hayeled, V'hinei na'ar bocheh. And it seems to be puzzling. He starts out being a yeled, and now it's talking about a na'ar. Are these two separate children, or is it the same child? She goes on to have pity on this child, V'tachmol alav, V'tomer miyaldei ha'ivrim zeh. Right? What causes her to say this must be a Jewish child? So Rashi tells us that the Yeled and the Na'ar are the same person as Moshe Rabbeinu, and his cry is the cry of an older child, really more like a Na'ar. There are different Mefarshim explain differently. Some say what made her say that it's a Jewish child is he was born already with a bris milah. But I'd like to offer an explanation of the Baal Turim, who says very differently. He says that there are two separate children here, and that's why first it says Vatireu et hayeled, and then it goes on to say V'hinei nar bocheh. Who is the Yeled? That's Moshe Rabbeinu. She opens up the teva and sees Moshe Rabbeinu. Who is the Nar that is crying? Who is the young boy that's crying? The young boy is Aaron. Aaron is now observing the scene, and he sees his brother in the teva, and he's crying over what is going to be the fate of my brother. So how does that connect to her saying this is a Jewish child? And I saw a beautiful understanding, that if one child can cry over the fate of another child, that must be a Jewish child. Why? Because as Chazal say in Masechet Yibamos, that there are three signs of a Jew. A Jew is a person who's rachmanim. We are compassionate people. We're baishanim. We're gomlei chasadim. Right? If a child can have such compassion that can cry over the fate of other children, then this must be a Jewish child. I want to share with you an unbelievable example of this that was told over by somebody who was at a bar mitzvah in Psagot. Bar mitzvah boy gets up at some point, his bar mitzvah, and he gets up to give his drasha. And at the end of the drasha, it's customary, the boy gets up to thank his family, and at the end he says, I would like to add something. I would like to speak to Hashem for a minute. And he gets up and he says the following words. He says, Ribono shel olam, I've now become a member of your club. Right? I'm now a full-fledged member of Klal Yisrael. I could be counted in a zimun and benching. I'm part of a minyan. And normally when you join a club, right, so you get some kind of gift, right? If I joined a gym, I would have membership in a gym. I can get a free bag, a towel, right? We normally get some kind of gift for joining a club. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, if I'm part of your club, so maybe a gift is coming to me for that. So, but I'm asking you, don't give the gift to me. I'd like to ask you to give the gift to one of my friends. You see, the same way I'm celebrating my bar mitzvah, the members of my class are also celebrating their bar mitzvahs. And there's one friend of mine who lost his father a couple of months ago in a terrorist attack. And he doesn't have a loving father to now prepare a drasha with him for his bar mitzvah. So please Hashem, send my gift to him. Send somebody who will be compassionate and patient and help this boy be able to prepare a drasha the same way my loving father prepared a drasha with me. And then he goes on and he says, I have another friend in my class who lost his mother. His mother was shot in a drive-by shooting, a terrorist attack. And my mother had patience when shopping with me for everything I need for my bar mitzvah. But who's going to do that for this boy? So please Hashem, send my gift to this child. Send somebody compassionate who will offer to take this boy shopping for his bar mitzvah the same way my mother lovingly did. And at that point, with tears in his eyes and with tears in the eyes of everyone at this bar mitzvah, this boy sat down. Where else do you find such a compassion at the day of his life, right? The day of his glory, where this child should be dancing on people's shoulders and thinking about himself and his bar mitzvah, and he's going to stop to think about his friends who don't have a father or don't have a mother, and that's what he's going to think of on his day of glory, Rachmanim Baishanim V'Gomlei Chasadim. So I'd like to understand what the difference is between Noso Be'olam Chavero and different kinds of chesed. Torah talks about tzedakah in Parsha Re'eh, talks about if we have somebody who's destitute in our nation, Ki yebecha evyom me'achad achecha b'achad sharecha b'artzecha, right? And if he asks you for a donation, then you should surely patoch tiftach et yadcha lo. You have to open your hands to him and don't withhold your hand. Don't refrain from helping out somebody who's asking you for money. That's tzedakah. There's a monetary need, and you help fulfill that. Chesed doesn't have anything to do with money. You can have a wealthy person who's very much in need of a chesed, and you either on your own initiative, you look for ways to do a chesed for somebody, or you're asked to do something, and you fill a need for somebody. But beyond that is no sei ba'olam chavero, because chesed sometimes could be more self-centered. You might do it because you feel guilty not doing it. You might do it because, I don't know, it looks good on your resume that you did such a act of kindness. There could be many reasons that are not about the person and more about yourself. When it comes to no sei ba'olam chavero, it's not about you, but it's about the other person. You're trying to understand what is the other person feeling, and you try to put yourself into their shoes and understand what they need. And sometimes, chesed is something tangible. No sei ba'olam chavero might not even be that you're doing anything tangible for the person. There's nothing physically that you could do for the person, but what are you giving them? You're identifying with them, you're giving them really your heart. So I'd like to give an example. The Torah gives us role models for different midos, and the example that we have in the Torah, the role model we have in the Torah, is Moshe Rabbeinu. If we take a look at Moshe Rabbeinu, when he found out that he's a Jew, so the Torah describes to us, first of all, he was growing up in the house of Paro, and the Torah tells us, Vayigdal hayeled, and this next pasuk tells us, Vayihi bayim ha'mehem, Vayigdal Moshe. Vayigdal Moshe, Vayigdal Yeled, why does it have to say that? We know that he grew up, right? Because the passage before that tells us Vayigdal HaYeled. And why Vayigdal Moshe? And the understanding is Vayigdal Moshe is not talking about that he grew up in age. Vayigdal Moshe is describing the situation of his existence, meaning he's in a place of godless. He's living in a palace of a king. He's not lacking for anything. And at that point, Vayetze Elachav. He goes out to his brothers. Says the Ramban, why did he go out to his brothers? Because he found out that he's a Jew. And he wants to go see what's going on. And Vayar b'sivlotam, right? And the Mepharshim are Modayik, it doesn't say Vayar et sivlotam, but Vayar b'sivlotam. He looks into their world and he sees, what they're suffering. And he's crying over what the backbreaking labor that they're going through. And that's the definition of what no sei ba'olam chavero is that you might have a certain situation of godless. Something is perfectly complete for you. You could have a fully stocked refrigerator. You go out of your existence to go see what poverty somebody else is in, and you try to understand what can it mean to not have food to put on your table? What does it mean to go hungry? You're going out and from your place of godless, and vayar b'sivlotam, you put yourself into the shoes of somebody else, and you try to understand them and empathize with them. So let's go back to Moshe Rabbeinu for a minute and understand what exactly did he do. So he goes out, says the Medrash, to go see what they're suffering, and he sees what's going on. He sees the backbreaking labor, and he's crying, and he says, Chavali alechem, mi tein moti alechem, I would die for you, because there's no greater work than the work with cement. And he gives his shoulder, he lends his shoulder to help each and every one of them. How do we understand that? First of all, it doesn't even make any sense. How many slaves were in Klal Yisrael at that point? So we know that 600,000 came out of Mitzrayim, and that was just the men. And we know that in Makar Choshech, 4/5 of Klal Yisrael were killed. So then we're talking about 3 million people. How could you lend your shoulder to help each and every one of them? What, for a second? So you can't really make a difference. So wouldn't it be cruel to go out there if you can't really do anything for them, to help them, let them rest for a few minutes? Anything you can give them is really not significant. So why wouldn't it be just better to say, he's got connections with Paro, let him try to do things from behind the scenes? So he does do that. There are many things that he does. The Medrash tells us that he convinces Paro to change some of the tasks that are not appropriate based on their age, or tasks that are given to men that should be for women, or the other way around. And he does try to do things behind the scenes. Another Medrash tells us that he convinced Paro that if you have a slave and you don't give him a day of rest, he's going to die. And he convinces Paro to give them Shabbos. And that's how we can understand when we say Yismach Moshe b'matanat chelko. Moshe felt the simcha when Klal Yisrael were now commanded Shabbos. That was chelko, that was his chelek. He had already initiated the idea of having Shabbos when Klal Yisrael were at Mitzrayim. But what would it add if he's now going out to watch their suffering and just lend a little hand for a second for each person? What would that make a difference? And the understanding is we need to know that somebody cares. He goes there just to cry with them and say, I feel for you, I understand your pain. to understand a little bit practical terms, okay, how could we open our eyes to this type of compassion or compassionate people? Just give a few little examples, again, as things that we observe when we open our eyes and we notice, people who do go out of their situation and try to understand people, right? You'll have families who will take a child with special needs for Shabbos, because they understand, even if they don't have a special child, they understand how time-consuming raising a special child could be, how much it affects the rest of the members of the family, and they want to give the rest of the members of the family a chance to have a Shabbos with the parents without the child with special needs. That's going out of your own situation and trying to understand what somebody else is going through. Or I once watched a friend of mine, okay, she was swimming, and she notices an elderly lady come to the ladder to go into the pool, and she notices on her face that fear, how am I going to get down the ladder? And this woman goes out of the pool, and she says, come, I'm going to help you. And she stands there with her, holding onto her foot, and helping her slowly lower her leg there with the security of knowing that there's somebody there to help her. And that's, this woman doesn't have that same fear of going down the ladder. She's much younger than the woman, but she went out of her own comfort zone to try to understand the other person. Okay, that's Vayar Bisivlotam. And the other woman, even besides for the help, it gave this woman the understanding that somebody else noticed my fear, noticed my need, and was there for me. The mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, right? If we do Bikur Cholim in the correct way, we try to be mevaker, we try to investigate what is it that the person needs, right? Again, I go out of myself. I might think that I would, if I was in the hospital, I would love a cheese Danish, but wait a minute, this woman might be lactose intolerant. That would not be a good gift to give her. Or she might not be able to eat solid food at this point, okay? And if I go out and try to investigate what does she need, put myself into her shoes, I might find out she really would love to have a bowl of chicken soup. That really would be the right thing to bring her, right? Or maybe I'd find out that she really doesn't want visitors, or maybe I'd find out that between 2 and 4, she really would like to rest, right? I go out of my existence and try to put myself into her shoes and understand what she's feeling. The mitzvah of Nichum Avelim, when you go to pay a Shiva Kwal, right? It's totally about the Avel, okay? There's nothing you can tangibly do for the person. You can't bring back the niftar, but what you can do is to just sit there with them for a few minutes and show, I care, okay? I'm giving you my heart, I care, and that's why I came. The Mishnah tells us that there are 48 ways to acquire Torah. Okay, this is in Pirkei Avos, and one of the 48 ways to acquire Torah is the midah of nosei ba'olam chavero. And the question is, we would think that this is a mitzvah ben adam l'chavero, right? All kinds of social situations. Why would this be something ben adam l'makom, a way to acquire Torah? And I'd like to offer 2 explanations. Okay, one, it helps us understand that to acquire limud Torah, to be able to learn Torah, I have to be nosei ba'olam chavero. I have to try to understand somebody else. Who am I trying to understand? So imagine you have a chavrusa sitting and trying to understand the emes of what the Torah means, and they're fighting a battle, the milchamta shel Torah, to try to understand what's the right meaning. So one offers one explanation, the other offers another explanation, and they argue back and forth to try to understand what is the correct understanding. Now, if I would only think about what I understand and not put myself into the mindset of my chavrusa, then I might not ever come to the emes of Torah, because I'm not going out to hear what they're saying, okay? And I might be wrong and caught up in my wrong understanding, and I will never come to the emes of Torah. As the Brisker Rav says, okay, I have to bring my head to the Gemara, but not the Gemara to my head. Okay, I have to go out and put myself into the mindset of somebody else, understand what they're explaining, try to understand their pshat, offer my pshat, okay, and I will come to the emes of Torah. When it comes to also limud Torah, okay, as a teacher, to teach Torah, I also have to be nosei ba'olam chavero. I have to try to go out of my own understanding and try to understand the world of my students. Let me give you an incredible example of this. Rosh Shlomo Freifeld Zatzal, okay, was the Rosh Yeshiva of Shar Yashav, okay, and this ma'aseh took place with a young boy, okay, who was growing up in the 60s, okay, a kid who had grown up in a religious family, but totally went off the derech to the point that he was traveling around, okay, South Dakota and Indian reservations to try to find meaning in life, okay, very lost soul. And he ends up at a reservation and sitting down talking to this elderly wise woman, trying to find the meaning of life. And she basically says to him, go back to Brooklyn, and that's where you're going to find the meaning in life with your people. Okay, goes back to Brooklyn, and he has a list of different rabbis to talk to, and he's still not finding the person he can connect to, and he finds himself calling Rav Shlomo Freifeld Zatzal. And he makes an appointment, he comes down to the yeshiva, and he's now sitting with a rabbi who doesn't seem to have anything else to do other than talk and listen to this lost soul. And this boy, that's it. He's intrigued, okay, he asks if he can come back, and of course he's told he can come back again, comes back again, but when he comes back, he sees there's a bris in the yeshiva, and Rav Freifeld notices him and tells him, come, stand next to me, okay? And again, he's just, he's found the rabbi who's willing to try to understand him. He comes back again, and in the middle of talking to Rav Freifeld, there was an emergency in the yeshiva. Rav Freifeld was called out, and he says to this boy, he says, wait for me here, there are plenty of svarim here, help yourself to something, and I'll be back shortly. Right? And the boy is browsing on the bookshelf, and as he's walking around the study, he notices that there are some books on the floor. And he knew enough from his childhood to know that books do not belong on the floor. And he bends down to pick up the books, and he gets a shock. He realizes these are not standard svarim. These are library books. And when he looks at the title, he sees these are books about an Indian reservation. What did Rav Freifeld do? Rav Freifeld understood that in order to be able to teach Torah to this boy, I have to understand him. And he took the time to go to the library, take at books about the Indian reservation, and try to understand the mindset of this boy in order so that he could teach him Torah. Okay, understandably, this boy connected himself to Rav Freifeld, became a Talmud of his, and went on the long journey to become a solid Ben Torah.